What is up, guys? TSL here, back with a brand new video. In today's video we'll finally be restarting the dungeon series, and this series will actually finish and it will actually be good. Now, as you may know, the previous / original dungeon series got discontinued after 2 parts. One, because I was trying to focus on my superpower training simulator series at the time, and 2, because that series sucked. Now this series I will try my best and make it not suck. And yeah, so if you remember last time, we had this one button, you click it, it counts down 3, 2, 1, and then teleports you to a random place. As you might know, that's not how dungeon games work. Now in this series, we'll be making actually how it works, where you click the play button, you have the option to either create your own dungeon or play. Then if you choose create, you can create your own. And then once you create it, you'll be taken to a list of all the players in your room or / dungeon. And then if you click the play button, it'll list out all the current dungeons, and then you can join whichever. And then you can press the start button if you're the creator of the room, and it will teleport everybody in your dungeon to the next place. Now, first thing we need to do is actually publish this game. So go over to File and Publish to Roblox, and we'll just do Dungeon Game. You can leave Team Create on or off. Team Create just allows autosave, so I'll just leave it on. Alright, so once you click that, it should be loading back up. And now that we're back here, there's one thing we want to do first. We want to go to the View tab, click Asset Manager, and double click on Places, then right click and click Add New Place. Now what you want to do here is just say, rename this, and I'll rename this to Ice Dungeon and Easy. Ice Dungeon Easy. Now what we're going to need is this ID, but we'll need that later, so just leave it, just X that out for now. Alright, so now what we're going to want to do is get the UI going. Now this UI actually took a while to make because it has a lot of parts to it, so I'm definitely not doing that in this video. So what I did instead is I made a model for you guys, and you guys can pick that up either in the description, in the pinned comment, or in the group, in my Roblox group. So just click OK on that because it has 4 scripts. One of them's a README, the other 3 are just the buttons to make the UI like move around and stuff. So we could just delete the README, and then we got some stuff to ungroup. So first of all, let's ungroup this, and then let's bring this to lighting and ungroup. Let's bring this to replicated storage and ungroup. Let's bring this to server storage and ungroup, and let's bring this to starter GUI and ungroup. So now, as you see in the lighting, we have a blur effect because, you know, in some games and some dungeon games, when you click on the UI button, the frame pops up, you have a blurred background after. Then we have a remotes folder in replicated storage. Now this has another folder in it for that's called client, and this is all the events that we handle on the client, and the rest of them are server-sided. You see, we have a few things. We have create room, join room, leave room, start room, and update viewing UI. This viewing UI that it's talking about is the current dungeon that you're in's player list. And then here in the client we have the hide blur effect and the update room list, which is the list of all the dungeons that are created currently. In server storage we have an extra UI folder, and the only thing in here is the start button, and there's nothing in it other than a UI corner to make the round corners for now. This start button, if you're the creator, will get cloned into your viewing UI frame. Now in starter GUI, we have a dungeon screen GUI which has a lot of frames, and we'll talk about that more in the video later. So if we go ahead and click play for now, what you should see is we have this play button. If we click play, we get the blur in the back. You get these 2 options. Let's say we want to create our dungeon. It'll slide out like that. You'd put your dungeon name, you'd click this, and boom, your dungeon will be created. But, well, that functionality is not scripted yet. So let's do that now. So actually, first we want to do is make a script that will handle all of our server remote events so that we won't have to worry about any of that later on. So this is basically going to be like our main script, and it's going to have like 200 to 250 lines. So let's insert a script in server script service. We'll call this the main handler. Let's zoom in so you guys can see this better, and let's get started with some scripting. So the first thing we're going to need, as usual, is some services. This time we're going to actually need 4 services. So say services, and we'll say local players is equal to game colon get service players. Local teleport service is equal to game colon get service teleport service. This is going to be used to teleport players through the different servers / places. And then we have rs is game colon get service replicated storage. And then we have ss, which is game colon get service server storage. Next we'll have some remote variables, remote event variables, and the first thing we need are remotes folder, which will be equal to rs.remotes, and we'll have our client remotes equal to remotes.client. Then here we're gonna need some stuff. So first we'll need the create room event, which will be equal to remote.create room. And if we just copy this, join, leave, and then we'll say update room list event. Then we need 2 more things, and this will be the update dungeon list, and this will be client remotes dot update room list, and we'll do local hide blur effect or event is equal to client remotes dot hide blur. Now you might see me either saying room or dungeon throughout this video a lot. Those are the same things, I just call them different things sometimes. Alright, so next what we want is some constants, and these will basically are variables that will never change. So the first thing we want is a start button, and this will be equal to extra UI, which we have to make a variable for here as well. So we'll do local extra UI is equal to ss.extraUI. So extra UI dot start button, and then we'll have a local dungeon IDs is equal to a table. So this is how we're going to be getting the dungeon IDs so that we know where to teleport to players. We're going to have a key here, and this is going to be the dungeon name, so like Ice Dungeon, and then it's going to be equal to another dictionary, and this one's going to have multiple keys, but we'll be focusing on only the easy mode right now, so it'll be called easy, and this will be equal to the place ID for that type of, or for that place. So we have to go back to our asset manager, and then our Ice Dungeon easy, and we want to copy ID to clipboard. Then we go here and we just paste that in. I don't know what that was. Okay, so next we just have one variable, and that is going to be equal our local rooms variable, and that is going to be a empty dictionary for now. So this local rooms variable is going to be a dictionary storing all of our rooms. The keys will be the players or the room name underscore by, and then the creator's ID. So let's get started with our functions finally. So the first function we have is going to be the update room UI. Now this one is going to be probably the most annoying one to make, but it is pretty simple nonetheless. Alright, so basically what we need to do is first of all make local function update room UI, and parameters for this function are going to be the player, which will be passed in by the remote automatically, the creator, the room name, and the player we want to update for. So the player to update for. Alright, so the first thing we want to try to do is get the room. So our local room, or actually, yeah, so local room is equal to rooms, and then we want to get the room name and concatenate it by underscore and creator.user ID. So this is what I was just telling you. This is how we're going to get our rooms. So let's say we have a room and I created it and it's called my room. Basically this will look like in this here. Our rooms table, if that was the only room created, would look like this. It would look like my room underscore by underscore and then my user ID, which is like something starting with that. Alright, so anyways, now that you know how that works and how we get our rooms, this is how we're going to be getting it. Next, we want to check if our room exists, and if it does, then that's good. We also want to make sure we have a player to update for, and the player to update for is a player. Alright, so then we want to get the player GUI, and this is going to be equal to player to update for dot player GUI, and we'll get a screen GUI, which is going to be equal to player GUI dot dungeon UI, as we called it here. We want to get our local viewing dungeon list is equal to screen GUI dot or colon find first child viewing dungeon list. And then let's just copy this because this is going to be how we're gonna get everything anyways. Let's just paste that, and then this time we'll say actually first off let's first do this. So first, once we update the room UI, we want to make sure that we tween the position to the center of the screen. So the way we'll do this is viewing dungeon list colon tween position udem2 dot new 0.5 comma 0 comma 0.5 comma 0, and then we'll say enum dot easing style dot linear, but actually first we need to do enum dot easing direction dot in out, and then we'll give it a duration of 0.5. Alright, so now that that's there, the next thing we want to do is get the background frame, and this is going to be equal to viewing dungeon list colon find first child background. Alright, so the next thing that we need from this is the scrolling frame, but first what we want to check if our player is equal to creator and our creator is equal to player to update for. Then what we want to do is actually clone our button. So our clone button is equal to start button colon clone, and we want our clone button dot parent equal to our bg dot footer. Alright, so next what we want to do is get the scrolling frame. So sFrame is equal to bg colon find first child, or we'll just do bg colon find first child, and this will be scrolling frame. Then what we want to do is get the local base player frame. Base player frame is equal to sFrame colon find first child base player frame. And next we want to get the header frame, and this is going to be equal to bg colon find first child and header frame. And let's actually just call this header, because why not? Alright, so now what we want to do is get local room name is equal to header dot room name. We'll do local room creator is equal to header dot room creator. We'll do local room player count is equal to header dot room player count. Okay, and then finally, or second to last thing we want to do is loop through every child inside of our scrolling frame colon get children. We want to say if not child frame, or if not child is a frame, or child.name is equal to base player frame, or child, we could just say or child is equal to base player frame, which is this. Where is it? Right here. It's this. So if it's not a frame, or if it's our base player frame, then we want to continue on to the next iteration. If it's not one of those, or if it's a frame and it's not our base player frame, then we want to destroy it. Nice. So then we want to loop through every player in our room.players. And basically we just want to make a clone, which is our base player frame clone. We want to set some stuff in it, like our clone.player_name.text is equal to players get by user ID, get player by user ID, and our player, because our room.players is a list of the players' user IDs that are in our room. So player is the user ID. So we get the player by their user ID, and then we just want to get their display name, because that's what the player name text will be. We'll set the clone.parent equal to sFrame, which is our scrolling frame, and then clone.visible equal to true. Alright, and that is it for the whole function. And basically we can't really test this right now because we don't have a way to create our rooms yet and stuff like that, but we'll test everything out at the end of the video, where hopefully we won't have too much stuff to fix there. Also, one thing to note is, I'll say this again later, but when we'll be testing it, you can't test it with the Studio's start 2-player local server thingy, because we're using user IDs a lot, and those local player things that are called like player 1 or whatever don't actually have user IDs. Also, you can't teleport in Studios. Alright, anyways, next function time. Let's just minimize this and let's move on. Alright, so the next function is a important one. Again, local function create room. This one will once again take in the player, the room name, the dungeon type, and the dungeon difficulty. Now this is a very simple function. We actually have two things only to do in here. One is the rooms, set the rooms of the room name concatenated with _by_, and the player.user ID. So once again, this is how this is created. So basically, if the room name was A or something, then this would, when we create the room, this would be A. We pass that in, and the player is the person creating the room, so we want their user ID here. And basically, we want to set this equal to a new dictionary, because this is how you make new objects in a dictionary in Lua, and like every other programming language. So first thing we want is a player's key, and this is going to be equal to another array, and this time the only object that will be in it for now is the player.user ID, because you know the creator has to be in the room themselves. The next thing we want is some info on the room, and this is going to be here. I like it better like that, and let's keep everything the same. So our type is going to be equal to dungeon type, and our difficulty is going to be equal to our dungeon difficulty. And then finally we want the creator is equal to our player.user ID. Alright, cool. And then the last thing we want to do here is update dungeon list : fire all clients, and we just pass in our rooms here. Alright, so basically this, we haven't actually created what this does yet, because this is this function is for this event, the update room list event, but the thing that we just fired off, only the creator can start the room, so only the creator should be firing this start room. So now we gotta validate that's an actual room, and yeah. So the first thing we need is our player list, and this is going to be it's going to use a helper function, or actually, yeah, it will. So let's just leave this empty for now, and let's come down here and we'll say helper functions. Alright, so this first function that we want to make is called function get players by user ID, and this will take in a array of user IDs. Now first let's just make a players array up here, and let's return it down here like this. Make sure this is lowercase because our capital version is our player service. Alright, so basically all we want to do here is for user ID in pairs of our user IDs, we want to basically just say if table.find and our room, or wait, we don't need this. All we have to do is local player is equal to players colon get player by user ID, and this user ID. Then we just table.insert to our players table, and we insert our player. Also, we want to say if player, then do this, and well, if it returns nil, then just don't do anything with it. Next, we'll make another helper function which we'll use later, and this is going to be get room by player, and this will take in a PLR ID, and we'll have a local full room name is equal to this. Then we want to say for room name, comma room in pairs rooms, we want to say if table.find room.players, comma PLR ID. Then what we want to do is our full room name is equal to PLR ID, and we want to return our full room name, and just in case we'll just return our full room name. Alright, so basically this will allow us to put in a player ID and get the room that they're currently in, if they're in a room, that is. Alright, so now that we have our helper functions, let's go all the way back to our start room function. Alright, so what we want to do here is set our players list equal to our get players by user IDs, and this takes in our room.players. Also, this is undefined because we called this get players. Actually, yeah, that's what it's supposed to be called. So this is get players by user IDs. Remove that. Alright, so, and then what we want to do, and we want to get the room.info of our difficulty. Also, this should be wrapped in, or what we should be doing is wrap this in square brackets as well, and it'll double wrap to there. Okay, so basically what we're doing here is we have to get our dungeon IDs, and we got to get the info, or the room.info, and get the type from it, and then we want to get it followed by the room.info of our difficulty, and we also need to do that here. So basically, we get the room's info type, which will be the type like Ice Dungeon, and we get that in our dungeon IDs as well. And then we get the difficulty, which, let's say it's easy, then we get easy, and it gives us our place ID. Alright, so yeah, this should be how it looks. So get our square brackets here. This one, I am not sure why it's there. And this one as well. But now we are getting an error. Okay. So yeah, that's why it was there. Alright, so because this one is closing this and this one is closing that. Same thing for that. Alright, so now what we want to see is we want to make a success to result, and we want to say just print players teleported to, and we'll say comma job ID. And we also want to set our rooms at our room name dot underscore by underscore player dot user ID equal to nil, so that we basically we're removing that room since it just got created and they're on their way already. And then what we also want to do is update our dungeon list so that people don't still see that room. So fire all clients and our rooms. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is actually add an else statement here. And if it was not successful, we want to warn our result, which will, in that case, will be an error message. And we don't want to error it because we don't want our script to break, especially if it's not our fault. Alright, so we have two more functions that we're going to make before the video ends, or actually three. One is very short, two are very short, and one is a decent size. Alright, so right now what we're going to do is make a local function join room. This is going to take players, and we want to say table dot insert temp room comma player, which is the player that is joining the room. And then what we want to do is room dot players is equal to temp room. Then we want to update our dungeon list and fire all clients with our room so that the player count will get updated and stuff like that. And then we want to loop through every player ID in our room.players. And we want to say update room UI, and we'll pass in our players colon get player by user ID, and our creator ID, because that is going to be the creator. And this is the player's service, by the way. And we're getting the actual creator of the thing and not just their ID using that method. And then we pass in our room name and then our player, our PLR, which we have to make a variable for. Local PLR is equal to players colon get player by user ID PLR ID. Alright, and that's all there is to joining the room. This is that function that we created up here for that remote event, except we're calling it not as a remote event since we're already on the server. You can't use Fire server. Also, this is going to just like make it so that all of our players can. What we want to do is say if table.find, and we are looking in the room.players table, and we are looking for the player.user ID. If we find them in there, then we want to remove them from there, so table.remove from our room.players and our player.user ID. Player.user ID, and we'll say hide blur event colon fire client, and we'll pass in our player, not player, player. Then we'll check if player colon find first child player GUI, then what we want to do is local PLR GUI is equal to player.player GUI. If player GUI colon find first child of our dungeon UI, then we'll say local screen is equal to PLR GUI dot dungeon UI, and we'll say if screen colon find first child, and we're looking for our viewing dungeon list. Removing just takes in the player, and all we're gonna do here is get our local room name equals our get room name or get room by player, and we pass in our player.user ID. Our get room by player is that helper function we made right down here. We want to say if rooms are room name. This one returns with the underscore ID and all that stuff. Then what we want to do is local room creator is equal to players colon get player by user ID, and our rooms room name dot creator. And then what we want to do is leave room, and we want to pass in the player that is leaving the game because they have to leave their room when they leave the game as well. And then our room name colon split, and we want to split it at an underscore, and we want to get the first index. So like I said, this will split at the every underscore in the string, and then the first index is whatever comes before the first underscore. So it's, in our case, that is the room name, and only the name without the underscore by underscore creator.user ID. And then we pass in the room creator. Alright, so all of our functions are done. Now that's all that's left in this script to do is our connections. So for here, all we do is create room event dot on server event colon connect and our create room. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this for all of our functions, and I'll be right back. Alright, well here it is, all the connections and the player removing connection as well. And that is it for today's video, guys. If you enjoyed this video and it helped you out, please remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps me out and it really motivates me to keep making content for you guys. Also, please remember to turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on the next video. And by the way, next video will be continuing working on this, and basically we'll make it so that our buttons actually call all this stuff and we get all the functions going, because this is actually everything basically that we need, except for one more local script that handles the updating of the lists, but that is all going to be happening next video, so make sure you come back. Anyway, see you in the next one. Bye.